Okay, so hi everyone and welcome to Architecture in the Den with me, your host Lisa Rains, the founder of the architectural practice franchise Pride Road. We provide a business in a box for those wanting to set up on their own. And today we are talking to Rosie Nimmo, an architect over at Arkhi, and we're going to be talking about the work-life balance, that dreaded work-life balance. Whether it's a joy or a challenge. I know today has been quite challenging for me. I don't know about you.
My day started around 5 o'clock this morning, so yeah.
Yes, yeah, it can be hard. Anyway, so would you like to start off by introducing yourself, Rosie?
Yeah. Yes, I'm an architect. I work at Arkhi in Cheshire, and we specialise in renovations, quite extensive renovations to residential properties, and we are gradually breaking into the commercial market as well. Now, so I've been at Arkhi for 18 months. Prior to that, I was at a practice in Manchester for 10 years, 11 years actually, I think. Yeah, graduated in 2014, which seems an age ago. Yeah, so here I am now, working part-time and with 2 young boys at home. Yeah, so hopefully I'm quite experienced in talking about the life balance alongside work, and dating all those things.
How old are your boys?
So I've got Arthur, who's 2, and I've got Angus, who's 5. Yeah, so the eldest is at school, and the youngest is at nursery a couple of days a week as well. So
cool. So so when you had the eldest Angus, had you qualified at that point?
Yes, I had qualified. Not long. It wasn't long after I qualified that I became pregnant. But yes, I had just qualified about a year, but I had worked at that practice since my part 1 year out. I'd stayed on working part-time, so I had a really good relationship with the practice, which definitely helped. They knew me really well, I knew them, and I had a good relationship with them, so that was very beneficial, I think, in my experience.
So how did you manage the maternity and time off?
So I was off for 6 months with him, which wasn't very long in hindsight, and I went back 4 days a week, and then within a few months I was back full-time again. And now with my second, and you'll know, Lisa, because you've got 3, is it?
Yeah.
That going from 1 to 2 is a big step up, isn't there, in a commitment. And I just needed longer off, so I had almost a year off with my second. And whilst I was on maternity leave, I was actually made redundant because they shut the Manchester office down at the practice. It wasn't just me. And so I had to look for employment elsewhere, which was really tricky because obviously I didn't have that relationship with practice. And I was just coming at it, having to put I suppose, having to lay myself bare and say, look, I have got 2 young children at home that do need my attention as well. And I really struggled to find somewhere that was using my previous contacts, emailing practices directly. And in the end, I actually sent Matthew, who's the director of Arkhi, a message. I ended up speaking to him and he called me in for interview straight away. Now, I'm very lucky in that Matthew's what I would call a progressive thinker. He's quite a young director, both in physical age and kind of mental age. He does like looking forward. He doesn't like to be stuck in the past. And he does recognise that there is a need for flexibility. in the industry, particularly for women, who are the ones that do tend to take the brunt of the childcare once children come along in a relationship. So yeah.
Cool. So what are you working at the moment?
I'm working 24 hours a week at the moment, so that's 3 days. I do generally work Monday to Wednesday, which I think helps. It helps. I do have complete flexibility within that time, so I can work, 5 days if I want, for less hours, but I do try and work 3 days a week, the same days every week, because then I can give clients, they get to understand that rhythm, that when I'm going to be there and when I'm not. So I think that helps as well.
And what sort of projects, or what stages of projects do you get involved in?
I get involved in all stages of the project, but I do tend to be more involved in the planning, so from concept up to planning. But that's more because that's just the stages that I naturally feel more comfortable working in. That's where I was working predominantly in my previous practice. But I do have projects now that are in stage 4 and beyond. So yeah.
When I was in practice, I think it was quite similar. So for me, I took 6 months out, and again the practice I was in folded, so I ended up being made redundant, and then similar to you, I went out looking for a part-time job with a practice, and I worked for Halliday Meacham, and they were really supportive, and so I was doing like master planning and sort of stages to planning, sort of like you, on a 3-day a week. I think I kind of changed between a 3-day and a 4-day a week basis, and I had my second child there, so the economy was booming, and then I had Charlie, and that was really good. So they kind of gave me some leave and all the rest of it, but when I got back into the office, I could just see that some of my colleagues had been promoted to like associates and stuff.
That's quite tough, isn't it, because I know you have to be reasonable, you have to accept that you have had time away, and that's going to happen, but it's quite disheartening, isn't it, I think?
But what I found was that I wasn't putting myself forward either. So, if I was asked, do you want to lead this, or is someone else going to lead it? I was like, no, I'm not going to lead on it, which actually I should have gone, yes. But, there was definitely a confidence thing in, sort of, which, a bit more support around that would have been useful, I think.
I think you can definitely get in that position where you feel like, because the practice has accommodated you, and because they're essentially doing you a favour, or it feels like that, that you have to kind of act grateful, and a bit like it does take a lot of confidence to step away from the feeling that you do feel like a little bit of an underdog, because you're the one that's taken time away and the practice is having to help you, and there's all these people that have given that commitment, and you do feel a little bit of guilt, I think, sometimes, and should they be helping you, and do I deserve it, and it definitely takes confidence to stand up and say, yes, I am a good employee, and I am going to commit to you, and it's important for anyone, as a parent, I think, that's taken time away, to have the confidence to do that.
So I'm looking at our questions. So our first question: do we think the work-life balance is improving?
I'm not sure if it has completely yet. I think it's definitely moving in the right direction. I was having a think about this, and I was talking to my colleagues about this recently, and we have been talking about this in the office quite a lot. And we've all been posting more frequently on LinkedIn, and we've been talking about what people are talking about on that platform. And we think people are being more open about the fact that there definitely needs to be more of a life-work balance. I mean, when you go through university studying architecture, you are 150% committed to it, aren't you? It completely takes over your life. And when you go into the workplace, it's quite hard to move away from that and think, yeah, I do need to have a normal life as well. And I think that COVID's really emphasised the fact that people do need to appreciate or make time to appreciate the things that are important in life. And hopefully, yeah, we will move in a...
It does take leaders, people in positions of leadership, to lead that way. Like you said, so Matthew was forward thinking and progressive.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
And do you know what has influenced that, and how we can support people in responsibility?
I mean, I think it helps. So his position is that he is married with 2 young boys, and his wife works. She's got her own career. She's actually a doctor, and so he has that understanding that some women do want to carry on with their careers after having children. It is important. And they don't want to go to university and, you know, put all that work into achieving something, and for it all to just go down the pan, I suppose.
Yeah.
Just to give it all up when that's your passion. And I mean, it's so important that the industry is balanced by men and women. I mean, I think it's very important. I've worked with loads and loads of different people from different backgrounds, and it's so important to have that mix of people, especially on larger projects. You want people with different perspectives on life, whether that's because they're different genders or different backgrounds altogether. I don't know. It just seems such a shame that there is potentially that lost bank of women, just because the industry can't accommodate motherhood. And I think it needs to change. I think it is, but I think more can be done, certainly among the larger practices.
I mean, I know kind of I've identified the issue, and kind of that's one of the reasons why I set up Pride Road. And, you know, kind of the sort of women that come to me have fallen out of the industry, you know, have trained, qualified, practiced, and then after kids or life issues come along, they've just fallen out. So, you know, Pride Road's that, you know, it's that welcoming sort of hand to pull women back in.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's about joining our pride, you know, join our team. You know, that's why it is Pride. You know, we are. Point. So if you're listening on a podcast, this is a YouTube. This is also available on YouTube, and I'm trying to point at my sign, but it's my not mirrored, so I've kind of got it wrong. Anyway, there's a logo in the background and Pride. Yeah, so that's why, you know, we chose the name Pride, because, you know, it is about a team, and you know, a pride is lionesses, you know. Lionesses run the pride essentially, and you know, and do everything. We have the kids, we hunt, we protect each other, you know, and that's it, you know. That's what we're here for. We do it all together, though, because there's like a communal kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
I mean, my goal with the practice as well is about kind of bringing some of those themes back into, you know, so that the industry to lead a step change in the industry as well, so that the industry can pick up kind of certain changes, and it is about welcoming women back into the workplace, you know, after family.
Yeah.
Your third question: would you advise females to have a career within the construction industry given the current flexibility? I mean,
my answer to that is 100% yes. I mean, I spoke before about the importance of there being a balance of genders. It'd be such a shame if the industry continued to be dominated by men. And I think when you do university now, I think when you do part one, it is at least 50-50 now. But as you get towards part three, it just becomes so imbalanced again, or it certainly did when I was there in 2014. There was, I think it was about 10% women on. Yeah.
On your part three course. Where did you do your part threes?
That was the RIB Northwest.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was still.
Yeah, it was still very, very imbalanced. I mean, this is coming up to 10 years ago, so hopefully it's changed again.
So 50-50 at uni. On your first degree, what about the postgrad? What was that?
I think that was about, I think it had gone down to about a third women, part two. So there was a big drop even then, which is such a shame. And also, I've been involved before in a thing called place education in Liverpool. It's run by a lady called Jo Harrop.
Oh yes.
And we did a workshop. Or I was involved in a workshop for like a STEM event. And I went for a day, and we had to work with children who were, I think they were about 7 or 8 years old. And we got them to come up with all these crazy designs for buildings. It was great. I mean, they just you talk about thinking outside the box. They just don't have a box. And so they were coming up with some amazing ideas, and I really enjoyed it. But particularly the questions they asked, particularly from the little girls that were there. I just remember this little girl come up to me and saying, so do you actually make buildings? And I was like, yeah. And it was just such an alien concept to her. And she was just so excited by this idea that she could go and do that as a job. She just obviously was completely unaware. And it was so lovely, like the enthusiasm was brilliant. So I mean, things like that are so important. Events like that, I think, to engage young, very young people, and get them involved, because
and change
how we're going to tackle this as an issue.
So one of the next question: does being a parent benefit you in working? This is reading off things doesn't quite work on a podcast. Does being a parent benefit you work in any way? Benefit your work?
That's probably my writing more than anything.
So yeah, I think the question is, does being a parent benefit work in any way?
Yeah, I think, so much. I mean, we get people sending us, because I'm in the residential market mainly, we get people sending us these Pinterest boards of, like spotless homes, and everything's absolutely perfect. And as a parent, we I think there's a few of us in the practice that have this perspective. We do say to people, have you thought about putting a boot room, for example, a messy entrance into your house with a shower that you can just direct filthy children into? Have you thought about how you can make your homework flexibly, so that 1 second it can be a bomb site with plastic toys everywhere, and it can be very quickly cleaned up and made to look nice for drinks with friends that are coming round. So it definitely does. I mean, being an architect, I want my house to look good. But also being a parent, you know, you do have a realization that that's not necessarily the most realistic of expectations at times, and how can we make that happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then it's across the board. I mean, you know, kind of, we used to talk theoretically about accessibility in houses, and just, you know, the difference between sort of imagining, you know, how do we get into a house with a wheelchair? Actually, that's not necessarily the case. What will happen when you've got kids is, how do you get into the house with a flipping pushchair?
Yeah, when it's pouring down with rain.
Yeah.
And we've been doing a project at work for a big like pub restaurant, and yeah, but having a toilet with nappy changing facilities in a accessible location, that you can just pile your stuff into there, sort your child out and get them back out. Not everyone thinks of these things. They should, but they don't. You're certainly more aware of it when it's you that's
and having had that experiential design, but then it goes, right, what happens when you look at your streets? What happens when you look at your parks and cities and your public transport? And it goes, and you can look outwards from that way, having used, you know, having walked across the city. With a pushchair and a screaming child, you know, not wanting to get in the pushchair.
Or wanting out the pushchair.
And it affects, you know, 50% of the population. Well, we're actually rapidly coming to the end of the podcast. What did you have a question you wanted to ask me?
I did. So it was, do you think practices offering more flexible working solutions, such as Pride Road, will remain a bit of a niche? Or do you think that they're going to become more commonplace? Do you hope they're going to become more commonplace? Or do you think things will stay as they are? Pride Road might be a little kind of a corner of the market that deals with, you know, small residential projects, or do you think something needs to happen in the industry that is affecting also large scale practices? I don't know what thoughts on it.
So I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric around flexible working. You know, I'm 23-year qualified. I've kind of worked, I used to be chair of Women in Property Northwest. I've sat on the RIBA National Council, you know, Manchester Society of Architects, RIBA Solo Practitioners Group. There's a lot of rhetoric. It's all talking. And I've, you know, Pride Road, I've done something about it. You know, I think the fact of the matter is I've built the practice to offer that working solution. Now we're growing. This week we're about to double in size, which is amazing. And so we're going up to 5 franchisees. You know, I think there's longevity in Pride Road, and it's definitely kind of like a legacy for me. So and hopefully it's going to be bigger than the sum of the parts. You know, we are becoming a national brand, and like we had a conversation about this off air. You'd come across, or your colleagues had come across Pride Road before I contacted you?
I saw some adverts on Facebook. So when you contacted me, it seemed it had some familiarity to it. It wasn't new to me.
So the idea is that we become sort of a national brand, recognised by kind of like the institutes. And so, you know, it's more readily available as a model for people to look at. And then if people copy it, fantastic. You know, if you know, take some of the ideas, use them, you know, use it, you know, it's a robust business model that supports that can support women and kind of people with families who want a work-life balance. So yes, at the moment it's niche, it will grow, and you know, it will, I'm hoping, change the industry. I mean, I was building Pride Road when I sat on the RIBA council, so you know, there's quite a lot of kind of thought leaders in there that are aware of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like your Jane Duncan and your Alan Jones and Ben Derbyshire and Simon Alford, the new president, you know, has been on a podcast and understands the model, and Ewan Miller. So, you know, the word's getting out, and hopefully people do recognise and can take some of our mechanisms on board.
Yeah, it's really good that there's a company actually, you know, you've done it, because you're right, people have been talking about it for too long, and not actually doing anything about it. I think, I mean, I don't know how, I think someone wrote something when I was at university, someone I know, about what happens, you know, when you become a mum, you just don't work anymore, but you have actually helped in changing the industry, which is very important.
It's I think it's, you know, I think it is incumbent on sort of people like us, like yourself as well, that if you can make it work for you, to then sort of reach down and help people become a mentor yourself. You know, become a, you know, put yourself above, like you are on the podcast, which is amazing. You know, head above the parapet, start talking and go, look, you know, it's about that representation. We can do it. I've got kids. Not being afraid of saying that you've got kids. I mean, when I was training, you know, having kids was a dirty word. Women in property didn't talk about having kids. I mean, it's like, but we're women, you know. He's going, yes we do, right, let's get over it and move on. How are we going to manage it?
Yeah, there was always a thing where you had to either choose your career or you had to choose to be a mother, and I think now there's becoming ways of doing both, and it being a realistic option without you having a bit of a breakdown in the process. You know, there are those tools to, and I suppose technology helps as well, doesn't it? You can go and work from home if you want to as well, like you are.
Right, I think that comes to the end of our podcast. I've really enjoyed it. It is one of my sort of favourite topics, the work balance and getting it right.
It's Lisa.
I think unfortunately we're probably still going to be talking about it for another couple of decades, I think. But thanks very much for coming on. If you're listening and you've enjoyed the podcast, please download, please subscribe. So that's Architecture in the Den. If you're listening on Spotify, it's available on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's available on Spotify. Please subscribe, share, that'd be awesome. And if you're interested in coming on as podcast guest, please get in contact. So it's me, Lisa Rains from Pride Road, saying goodbye.
And me, Rosie Nimmo from Arkhi.